Hi everyone, this is Jeffrey Sturman. Congratulations on making it to the end of the class, and thanks for tuning in to my presentation where I append new features to a national tracking layer. I created this script for work because one of my tasks is to map parcels along rails to trails corridors, and these trails are across the entire country. And sometimes we get in new projects and we might say, oh, that sounds familiar. Don't we have another project going on in Tennessee or North Carolina? But nobody is sure how close it is to other projects or if there's overlap. So I wanted to create a tool where I take newly mapped parcels and I append them to a national tracking layer. That way, I and managers can use this national tracking layer to see what projects we have across the country and look at them at a high level. So there are several inputs for the script, the primary being a parcels layer that's in an ArcGIS Pro project. Those are new parcels that the user would have mapped. Also, there's the nationwide projects tracking layer that contains the projects all across the country. And then there's a projects table that has extra attributes that the managers might use. And all these feature classes and tables are linked by project ID. So the basic script steps. First, the script, when it's run, will prompt the user for a unique project ID. Next, it'll validate that ID does not already exist in the tracking feature class. Next, the user is prompted to enter the path to the parcels feature layer. And again, it's validated to make sure that that path and layer does exist. And then next, a bounding box is created around the parcels. I didn't append the actual parcels because there's thousands of them across the country, and that would become a maintenance nightmare. So instead, there's a tool where you can create a bounding box that creates a single box around all of the features. Next, it adds a project ID field in the bounding box layer, and it sets that equal to the user input entered above. Then the bounding box is appended to the tracking feature layer. And finally, the projects table is joined to the tracking layer so that those updated attributes are added to the table. And then as a little bit of cleanup, the bounding box layer is deleted because once it's appended, it's no longer needed. So here's some of the code. Above I have the import ArcPy and I have some variables established, but the main code I've wrapped into a try except statement because first, when the user is asked to enter the project ID number, I then use a search cursor to make sure that that project ID number is unique and doesn't already exist in the feature class. If it does exist, I raise a error and the script ends. Similarly, the user is prompted for the parcel layer and path, and again, I make sure that that exists. These are the sections of code where I run the ArcPy tools. So I create the bounding feature class using the minimum bounding geometry tool. Then I add the field for project ID, and this took me a little bit of time, but I had to get the SQL expression right. I needed to have quotes around it because sometimes the project IDs contain hyphens or other characters. So I set the project ID field equal to the user input. Then it's appended to the tracking feature class. Once that's done, the bounding box is deleted. And I also added in these print statements because I wanted the user to see, okay, the feature class was appended, and okay, at the end, the tracking table was joined to that tracking feature layer. So in the middle is the try except statement, and I wanted to show that at the top of the code I created two classes, one for the layer error when the path to the parcels feature layer doesn't exist, and I also added a parcel ID error. That's for if the project ID already existed in the tracking layer, the user gets the error. So the code starts with the try statement, and then at the very end are the two exceptions for the project ID error or the layer error. So my debugging strategies, I already mentioned the try except statements and creating the classes for the errors. I initially did my coding in blocks in ArcGIS Pro. I used the Python window and ArcGIS notebooks because I wanted to make sure that I got those snippets properly working. And then I consolidated it into a larger script by just copying and pasting that code. Once it was consolidated into a larger script, I did need to edit things to make it run more smoothly. Initially, I tried some if-then statements, and that got burdensome. So that's when I went to the try except method, and that took some redoing of the code, but I think it made it more efficient in the end. So once the script is run, the main output is the updated tracking layer. So the new parcels, the bounding box was appended to that layer, and then also the projects table that contains the additional attributes was joined to that tracking layer. And then I mentioned a little bit of cleanup by deleting the bounding box layer that's no longer needed. So I think this is a useful tool, not just for these Rails to Trails projects, but really for any number of projects where users want to have a generalized tracking layer and append smaller projects to it. So thanks for watching. I hope your projects turned out well, and see you around.